couple of weeks ago, I did a bit of a retrospective of trends in the watch geek world over 2020. Now I'm going to turn my mind forward and talk about some of the things I think we might see in 2021. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville and I'm talking about some of the not so obvious things we may see in our little geeky niche in 2021. Before I go on, what I've got to say is I'm not talking about groundbreaking, earth-shattering, everything's going to be different kind of changes. We're not talking about Rolex going out of business or Movado becoming an enthusiast brand. Much more subtle changes which will be noticed really only by us within our community. What I think is driving this change is really two big things to do with us in the watch community. The first is we are growing increasingly confident and weary. Confident and weary, driven by the fact that with the mainstream media, this has been a hobby. This horology has been a sort of a big hobby for coming up on 20 years, possibly a little bit over 20 years. Things like Facebook groups are coming up. Well, Facebook was opened in 2004. So Facebook groups and things have been around for about 15, 16 years. Then you've got brands like Revolution Watch and Hodinkee that opened up in like 2005 and 2008. You've got Instagram communities that have been around since probably 2012, and then you've got watch like internet forum, watch YouTube communities and things that have been around since 2010 as well. So with all of that, what you've got is a community of people that are both from the creators and the consumers are second or third generation participants. We've been around the buoy a fair while. This is not our first rodeo. And as a result, I think in the early days, people were really motivated to stay with the mainstream. People were really motivated to stick to a small number of topics because they didn't really know much else and they didn't have a lot of confidence branching out from the watches and the brands and the styles that they knew about. And I think that is increasingly not the case. There is a growing demographic of people who are really getting tired of the same old brands, the same old watches, the same old genres, the same old looks, the same old treatment. And they want something else. And at the same time, they're getting more confident in demanding more, demanding newer designs, demanding things they haven't seen before, and demanding things like transparency from brands. So that is kind of the backdrop to what I think we're going to start seeing happening through 2021. So with that backdrop said, let's now get into what I think we're going to see. And the first thing is, and this really comes from this idea of being more comfortable and more confident and being more open to change, we're going to see a move away from mid-century modern 50s, 60s inspired designs, and we're going to see a lot more postmodern 80s, 90s, maximalist, less is a bore kind of ideas. So we're going to see more decoration, more flamboyance, more interesting designs, more use of finishing, that sort of thing. Less kind of German minimalist and more kind of American maximalist, if you like. Some of you might think that's a terrible thing, but I reckon that's what we're going to see. And personally, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Prediction number 2, and closely following on from this idea of being more confident, less uncertain, less insecure about our watches, I think we're going to see increasingly more designs that are not divers. We're going to see a dive watch is a nice safe harbor for a guy who wants jewelry but doesn't want everyone to think he's wearing jewelry. I think we're going to see people get beyond that and be comfortable not necessarily with a full-on dress watch, but with dressable watches, with dressy watches. So we're going to see less moving bezels and so forth, and we're going to see more and more fixed bezels, big case, lots of color, dressed up, tarted up, spat and polished kind of field watches, pilot watches. Yeah, they'll still be steel. Yeah, they'll still have screw down crowns and they'll still be able to take a bit of a punch. But at the same time, they'll clearly have a bit more flair, a bit more fun, a bit more play than the straight divers that have kind of been the safe harbor for watches, men's watches in particular, over the last 2 decades. Prediction number 3, and again, following on from this idea of people getting more confident with accepting that things that they just like what they like, they don't have to play in the nice, safe mainstream. We're actually going to see more quartz movements, and we're going to see people being happy spending $2, $3, $4, $5, $10,000 on a quartz movement. Now, we saw that starting to happen through 2020. And I spoke about this with like the rise of the $1,000 G-Shock. I think whether it's the Breitling Endurance Pro or a Seiko 9F, yeah, like they might be sort of high-end precision quartz movements, but they will still be quartz movements. They will still be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 watches or more. And I think people are going to be more and more comfortable buying them, feel less and less need to apologize for them. And I think they're going to be a big thing in 2021 and beyond. At the big end of town, I don't mean necessarily the high-end manufacturers, but the big companies, the ones that make hundreds of thousands of watches a year. I think we're going to see companies which have been on the outer, which have not been regarded well by the enthusiast community, forcing their way into the tent. The 3 brands I'm going to talk about here are Hublot, TAG, and Breitling. I think that for the last couple of decades, those have actually been kind of the butt of jokes, the target of memes, to kind of keep them in their place. I've sensed an intensification of that over the last year or two. And I think that's a hugely positive thing for those 3 brands, because that intensification of memes, of ridicule, of defensive tactics means that those people who are invested in the current status quo know you're coming and are desperate to keep you in your place. I'm seeing more and more of the mainstream professional media taking those brands seriously, some pushback in the enthusiast space, because enthusiasts have generally until now kind of been less comfortable about embracing those brands. I think in 2021 that dam wall is going to get even further eroded, and those brands are going to start, not just them, but the TAG, Hublot and Breitling, the 3 that I can think of right now, are really going to make big inroads back into the enthusiast community, which until now has kind of shunned them. Moving down, this is my now prediction number 5, not in quality. Probably we're still talking about that same quality level, but certainly in terms of size. I think we're going to see a rise of mid-tier independent or artisanal watches. So people who, again, this theme I'm having of more confidence, more an increasing desire to somehow be different to everyone else. We're going to see brands like Kadoki or Dornbluth and Zona out of Germany, or Corona out of Japan, or Louis Arad out of Switzerland, really coming to the fore as people are searching for really high quality, good product that is not the same as everyone else. And I think we're going to see them really, we're not going to see them selling 100,000 watches a year or anything like that, but we're certainly within what I predict is companies like that and others are going to be on the tips of our tongues, and they're going to be in a lot of conversations at the end of next year that they're not in right now. Okay, so industry prediction numbers 6 and 7 are both linked to this idea of increasing transparency, of us as consumers demanding to know more about things, and once we know it, holding people to account. So the first thing is, I think we're going to see less and less companies talking about, boasting about in-house, but we're going to see more and more companies talking about manufacture. So we're going to see companies recognizing that if they use the word in-house inappropriately, like say Bremont did a couple of years ago, they are going to get smashed because we're going to know, and it's just going to be a nightmare for them. But they can't go and produce everything in-house. What they're going to do instead is more and more go to larger third-party providers, get them to make things just for them, and then use it back on their watch, and then tell us about it. And that word is manufacture. So I think we're going to see more and more manufacture bracelets, manufacture sapphires, manufacture cases, manufacture hands, and of course, manufacture movements. I think manufacture, as opposed to in-house, could be the word of 2021 and probably beyond. As a little subplot to that, I think what you're also going to see is some of those third-party providers stepping out from behind the curtain and actually wanting to take the credit for this. So you're going to see Fortis bloody blah with case made by blah, manufactured for us by X. I think those third-party suppliers are going to want to step out from behind the curtain, and I think that the primary, the watch seller, is going to encourage them to do that in some cases. Okay, prediction number 7, slight twist on that. Again, in the same way as we with internet access can really get a lot of insight into the whole in-house versus manufacture thing, I think there's going to be some real movement in how people use and deploy Swiss and German made. There are lots of loopholes in how you can use those terms. For example, most people wouldn't realize that in terms of calculating percentages for Swiss made, the bracelet doesn't count. So if you're Amiga and you get your bracelet made in China, it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact the 60% of your watch at all. The watch, unless the bracelet is riveted or welded to the case, so integrated bracelets still aren't part of the watch. Unless it is like permanently affixed, it's not part of the watch. And there's a lot of companies who are getting all of those accessories, all of those surrounding bits made elsewhere and still being able to claim Swiss made. I think that what's going to happen is those companies which are getting things made in Switzerland, their hands, their cases, their bracelets, they're going to start making a big song and dance about it. They're going to start making it very clear that they're not using these loopholes. And that's going to expose things for the companies which do. So I think that even if the rules don't change, even if the rule still allows people to have a bracelet made in China but still be a Swiss-made watch, I think that the behavior of brands and then making it clear to us that that's what they're doing is going to force some change. For both Swiss, I've focused on Swiss and German-made monikers moving forward. My final prediction is that YouTubers will continue to grow. We will start getting more and more people hitting the 100,000, 200,000 YouTubers. However, there will be no gold YouTubers by the end of this year. A gold YouTuber is a YouTuber with 1 million subs. The closest we get is Watchfinder. They're at 600 and something thousand. At this rate, they won't get there until 2024. So, yep, there still will be no gold watch YouTubers. And I think the whole point of this last prediction is the watch media is still going to grow, but we will still be pretty small and niche compared to mainstream. So anyway, that's it. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering. I didn't pretend that there would be. Everything is that I predicted is actually pretty in-house to us. And unless you're a geek, you won't even notice it. It's also even pretty subtle. I don't see any seismic shifts coming. But I think you are going to see some permanent and long-lasting changes coming within the industry, not because of changes in the industry, but because of changes with us. We are changing, and that is going to force change on them, whether they like it or not. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches and my look at what I think is going to happen in 2021. If you think I'm totally wrong, if you think I've missed something really important that's ground-shattering and groundbreaking and earth-shattering, leave me a comment below and let me know. See you later. Bye.